The ashes of today are the sparks of tomorrow, by XX Misery Smiles XX, read by Kaiinbed. Relationships include DabiHawks, Fuyumi Murako, Tomura, and Natsu. Additional tags include hospitalization, post-canon fix-it, quirkless Hawks, sort of, Hawks acts like a bird, identity reveal, fluff and humor, hurt comfort, slow burn, recovery, falling in love, angst, miscommunication, PTSD, implied sexual content, and Eraserhead adopts Tomura. Summary. Hawks lost everything during his fight with All for One. His quirk, fierce wings. His hero name, his purpose. So when he wakes up in a hospital bed, he's ready to give up and lay there forever. That was before Toby. Cocky, smug, and annoyingly pretty blue-eyed Toby barged in and changed everything. Hawks woke up to bright lights. This was the hospital. The same room he'd seen 100 different times, that it no longer felt like separate things. It was just shards of the same fractured bone, taken into X-ray and set into cold cast hands. He was here again. His wings weren't. All for One had taken them. Hawks was broken by the same lights that tried to welcome him back. This is how it starts. 2 moments before the moment, the one that changed everything. 1. Hawks finds a mirror. It's across the room on the opposite wall. He asks the nurse, a cat mutant with a friendly face and long green hair, to bring it to face him, so he could look at what was there. He didn't recognize himself. His usual feathery plumes fell flat around his head, hanging over and into his eyes, bandages wrapped over his forehead and under his nose, obscuring his left eye beneath the gauze padding. Rough, jagged scars crawled beneath his exposed eye, staining the skin red. He could still see sharp as ever, though, and he realized with a start that he still had his mutation, every part of it that haunted him, save for the one that had made it worth something. Now he was singing his swan song, treading water as he drowned. 2. The nurse makes him leave. All right, the cat nurse strode in, giving him an imperious look. You're going out and talking to people. Hawks glared at her. Why? Human contact and exercise are important parts of the recovery process, especially for trauma survivors. Since you haven't let Tsukiyomi or Miracle visit you despite their request, you need to try and engage with some of the other patients. She crossed her arms, and Hawks scowled, mirroring her look. She didn't seem impressed. Damn it. Takami, she started. Hawks sighed, then felt another wave of emptiness crush out his resolve all at once. Fine. His voice didn't crack as he said it. He tells himself that as he stumbles out the door and into the hallway all over again. That's how Hawks found himself sitting in the brightly lit common area of the hospital, in a seat against the wall, close to the door in case he had to make a quick escape. Some instincts died hard. People were talking, laughing, some were reading, a few did a puzzle, and 2 played cards. None made Hawks feel any desire of joining in. It was another world now, one different from the one he'd passed out in. He'd died a hero and woken up alive. He wondered if alive was better than a hero. It didn't feel like it. Hey, haven't seen you here before. A voice cut through Hawks' silent reverie. You know, or just shy? Hawks turned, blinking in surprise as he realized someone had sat next to him. His face flushed. The man looked young but haggard, with long white hair that fell in his eyes and down to his collarbone in choppy layers. Faint scars like track marks covered his face, as if he was a patchwork doll stitched together. Soft blue eyes gleamed at Hawks, filled with mischief. Both? Hawks hazarded, not sure how to respond. Sure, idiot. What's your name? Hawks froze. The name Hawks felt wrong now, that he wasn't a hero. He didn't want to pretend that he was still a hero. He was nobody now. So Keigo then? But Keigo wasn't nobody either. Keigo hurt. Keigo was a stab to the gut. I don't... His neighbor cut him off, chuckling. It's okay. Call me Toby. Toby, a soft, clever name for soft, clever eyes. Toby, huh? That's nice. American, right? Hawks started, trying to continue the conversation in a positive direction. Call me Kay. That worked. It felt safe. Not too much of anything. Something in the middle. Toby frowned, looking serious. You got a little something right there, you know? He pointed at his cheek. Huh? Hawks frowned, hand moving to touch his face, then registered, just as Toby made a muffled snort. Are you talking about my bandages? Maybe. Toby drawled, teasing. Fuck off. Hawks snapped back, glaring, but no real heat behind it. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time I've been bandaged and basically quirkless. He wasn't sure why he said it. Maybe just to take Toby off guard. Maybe this was his new idea of opening up. Either way, it did the trick. Toby's mouth opened slightly, eyes widening. Quirkless? Yeah, Hawks said, regret pulling into his stomach. Don't want to talk about it. I wish I was quirkless. Out of all the responses Toby might have given, that wasn't exactly near the top of the list. Yeah? Hawks blurted, surprised. What's your quirk? Don't want to talk about it, Toby mocked, raising a challenging eyebrow. Is it why your face looks like a quilt? Hawks shot, a smug smile playing on his lips. Challenge accepted, bitch. Oh my fucking... Toby growled, then tugged up his shirt. It's not just my face. I got fucking full-body skin grafts. These hurt. Whoa, dude. Hawks barked, holding up his hands in surrender before he paused to look at Toby's exposed torso. He wasn't wrong. More small stitches covered his chest and stomach. Full-body skin grafts. Hawks shuddered at the thought. Though, it didn't exactly ruin Toby's looks, he noted. Nice abs, he said, smirking. Toby's shirt was yanked down so fast he could have been Hawks late for work. Shut up, he bit out, looking like an annoyed cat. Hawks blushed, a short giggle escaping him. Hey, don't be prickly, kitty quilt. Toby just frowned deeper, staring at the ground. The expression sobered them both. Hawks' almost smile slipping away. I thought you said you were shy. Toby bit out softly. Honestly, Hawks realized that Toby probably took the flirting as a joke, poking fun at him. And so Hawks would have to do the one thing he hated most. Be honest. I think it's less shy and more just hurt. Hurt and tired. I'm not really ready for people. Or heroes. Friends. Toby's head twitched. Heroes, huh? Slowly he looked up again, meeting Hawks' eyes steadily. There was something new there. Something dangerous. It sent Hawks' heart beating fast. I can drink to that. Allies then? If you're not here to make friends. He laid out the last part in quotations, and his easy offered hand made Hawks' stomach buzz with butterflies. He smiled. Genuinely. Small but real. It was the most real thing he felt he had since waking up. Since All for One. Yeah. Toby likes horror movies and dark chocolate. Toby likes banana bubblegum and American rock bands and playing cards. Toby likes spicy sushi and cold soba and old sci-fi and bad conspiracy theories and the sound of rain against the windows. Hawks likes Toby. Hello, Takumi-san. The nurse, he learned in the past week or so her name was Ogawa, was back. Smug grin and chirped greetings. Hawks didn't mind her as much now. The cheeriness felt less like an insult and more like an invitation. It was easy to grin back. Hey, nurse. How you feeling? She followed up, pushing a cart in with her. Hawks considered it. Better. Someone's looking chipper? She hummed, raising an eyebrow and leaning over. Hawks tilted his head, letting her undo the hooks from his bandages and carefully unwrap them. I heard you've been spending time with Toby-san, Guilty as charged, Hawks said, sighing. I'm glad, the cat mutant appraised, approval in her curt nod. He didn't speak to anyone until you showed up, you know. We were rather worried. Really? Hawks remembered how Toby had turned to him, the hey that had started it all. He played it back, viewing the exchange through new eyes. I don't blame him, dear, Ogawa murmured, sympathetic. Both of you have quite the fraught history. Hawks considered that, as Ogawa brushed his face with a coat of aloe, and cream for healing scrapes and burns. A fraught history. He hadn't yet really talked about his past with Toby, and Toby hadn't given him any grace in the opposite direction. And honestly, that might be the thing that made them work so well. Toby never much seemed to care about who he was, just who he is now. It was a relief to not have to be anyone, to not have a past or a life. Then Ogawa leaned down, a smirk playing at her lips, and looking past the stitches. He's a cutie, isn't he? Ogawa whispered conspiratorially. Hawks flushed scarlet, batting her away. Ogawa-san! The nurse giggled, stepping back to grab the roll of bandages so she could finish the work with the fresh wrappings. Hawks let her, a flustered pout on his lips. The mirror across from him let him see all that went down. His limp blonde strands, the long gashes that covered his face beneath the cloth. He didn't see Hawks anymore, really, but he recognized himself at least. It felt like him. For some reason, he almost expected to see a shock of white hair and pretty blue eyes step out beside him, smirking and saying something stupid that made all the feelings and nerves Hawks hadn't felt for months spark all at once. There had only ever been one other person who had reached him like that. That ability to so easily grab him and hold him tight in their hand, electrocuting every nerve ending and brain wave until he was a mess of feelings and thoughts. Maybe he was just a sucker for a blue-eyed stare. Chapter 2. Hawks and Toby were sitting in the common room again, over a puzzle of two cats dressed like an Edo period emperor and empress. Toby yawned, leaning back on his hands. This is boring, he stated before looking up to pin Hawks with a look. You want to get out of here? Hawks tilted his head, confused. Usually patients wouldn't be allowed to wander the halls without alerting one of the nurses, and Hawks had an idea that Toby was probably going somewhere with this that a nurse wouldn't approve of. How would we even do that? Oh, I have my ways, Toby replied, touching the tips of his slender fingers together and flashing a wicked grin that shouldn't be so appealing as it was. Like what? Hawks asked, suspicious. Toby just cackled. Toby, what the hell? Hawks tripped over his shoes as Toby ran down the side hallway. He slipped them down while the nurse supervising them wasn't looking. Toby was laughing, his hand firmly clasped around Hawks' forearm. Hawks barely kept up, continuing to shout him down for answers as Toby pulled around two corners, then to a brown wooden door. The area looked older, almost like a 90s school building, with brick walls, with brown and white tiles. Toby yanked open the door, which was unlocked, and barged through, finally letting go of Hawks. He took the time to catch his breath, sweat soaking into his bandages in a distinctly uncomfortable way. You know, he breathed, shaking out his hair. For someone with full-body skin grafts, you're fast. It sounded like an accusation, despite it not being intended as more than a half-hearted dig, which Toby seemed to delight in. He was always one to fight. I have a pain tolerance like you wouldn't believe, nerd. Hawks scoffed, rolling his eyes, before looking up and stepping in. Where did you even take... Oh. It was a small chapel, high wooden ceilings, and a stained glass beauty on the back wall, depicting Mary with her arms open, 7 stakes driven through her body and heart. Back when the hospital opened, it was owned by a church. It went into government custody in the 1950s. They made a better worship area downstairs, so now this just sits here. Toby explained. That's awesome. Hawks blinked in wonder as he tried to take in the place. Toby seemed distracted, glancing over the pews, before striding towards one and pulling a small book from the rack in the back. Holding it up, he passed it to Hawks, before grabbing another. Hawks looked down. It was a Bible, bound in bottle green leather with the Holy Bible, in gold kanji across the top. "Want to play a game?" His tone was casual, but his eyes were round with mischief, and Hawks felt true fear for the first time. There was nothing more worrying than a Toby idea. "That depends a whole lot on the next words you say, cutie quilt," Hawks said dryly. Toby snickered. "When I was younger, my dad had a Bible someone gifted him on a charity trip. I would flip through it and find random edgy verses to make into poems. It was how I taught myself to write kanji growing up." He grinned, and Hawks felt his heart give an awkward thud. It was a rare moment that Toby mentioned his childhood. It felt fragile, deliberate, and odd. "So you want us to do a Christian poetry slam?" he asked, because he was also stupid and great at shattering any moment people tried to have with him. Thankfully, Toby didn't seem to want it to drag either. "Bingo." Hawks rolled his eyes, then grinned. "Okay, let's go." Toby walked over, leaning close to him. His skin radiated a faint warmth, and his breath was hot and smelled like the bubblegum packs he got from the vending machines downstairs. Hawks' cheeks flushed. "Here, usually I like to pick a theme, but since you've never looked through this, it'll be harder for you. Fortunately, I don't care. Pick a theme." Hawks thought. "God." Toby shoved him, cursing some threatening nonsense, and Hawks remembered something about Christian doctrine advising against admitting your gay thoughts when you had them. Mentally baptizing himself and slapping on an "I love Jesus" bumper sticker to his flight suit. Back when he first got his hero costume, he tried to register himself as an airborne vehicle several times. He happily reported no gay thoughts took up space in his head. Okay, Hawks said after he calmed down enough to stop laughing and speak. "How about freedom?" "Deal," Toby said, then flipped through and spoke. "If you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Hawks took in a breath, then looked down, flipped through, and continued. "I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Oh, give not the soul of your dove to the hawk. Let not the life of the poor go out of your memory forever. Keep in mind your undertaking, for the dark place of the earth are full of pride and cruel acts." Toby raised an eyebrow, and Hawks wondered if he knew somehow. When Toby didn't respond, Hawks flipped to the part he was at, trying to find the context for the verse. But another caught his eye. "Do you think that the hawk still soars and spreads his wings towards the south?" It was a question that went deeper than it was posed as, and whether Toby knew it, it still hung heavy in the air. And Toby answered simply, "He flies away like a dream, and they cannot find him. Even like a vision of the night, he is chased away." Hawks felt his breath catch. They walked back down the hall together, laughing and joking, taking slow steps and stealing quick looks at each other when the other wasn't looking. The startled glance to curved lips, warm golden eyes, soft white locks. Then Toby shuddered and froze, doubling over and gasping, hands clasped at his stomach, and Hawks felt himself freeze, lunging forward to grab Toby's arm and lead him over to the wall. His skin felt hot and feverish, and Toby's shoulders shook with unseen spasms. "Toby, what's going on? Should I get a nurse?" "God!" Hawks fussed, chewing his lip. "No," Toby gasped, gritting his teeth. This is normal. Happens sometimes. It's my quirk. Hurts me. Fuck." His eyes closed, and a few tears streaked down his cheeks. Hawks frowned, having no idea what to do. "Usually I have a quirk suppression bracelet, but I think I forgot." Toby shook his head, coughing. Hawks reached out, vision flashing in worry, and then paused. "Can I touch you?" Toby opened his mouth, but then closed it again, not able to talk. Hawks took a deep breath. "Just nod for yes, shake your head for no." A hesitant nod. Hawks gently took his hands. "Squeeze my hands when it gets bad, okay?" Toby nodded again, then squeezed Hawks' hands hard as another wave racked them. His palms were hot, shaking. Hawks held him. Hawks held him until his breathing evened out. He held him until the fire in his eyes dimmed. He looked small and unsteady again. "Does it always hurt?" Hawks whispered. Toby nodded slowly. "Yeah, they've got me on heavy quirk suppressants, but it doesn't always work." Hawks wondered, not for the first time, what Toby's quirk was. His current theory was that it was some sort of overacidic blood or sweat quirk. It would explain the scars and the pain, melting away skin. He remembered that one of the UA students has something similar, though hers didn't seem to hurt her in the same manner. "You could always ask Tokiyami. He'd know." Hawks shoved the thought away as soon as he had it. He hadn't talked to his intern since he woke up. Call it selfish or something, but he just couldn't do that anymore. Couldn't face the boy who he taught to fly and admit he'd lost his wings. "I'm sorry," is all he said, squeezing Toby's hand back. Toby quirked a faint smile, eyes more silver than blue in the overhead lights. "Don't frown now, Keitan. If I'm going to feel any better, I need some of that sugar shine smile." The honorific made Hawks' cheeks heat. "I like it when you say my name," he whispered. "Really?" Toby raised a mocking eyebrow. The king of nicknames, reduced to dust by a simple word. Hawks scoffed, batting him away. "Shut up, idiot." "What about Keiko?" For a minute, Hawks froze, mishearing the name. Keiko. Keigo. Don't look so appalled. Toby barked out a laugh. "It's just a nickname." Then it clicked. It was just a joke. Using a nickname scheme almost always reserved for girls. Toby was none the wiser. No one here knew who he was, except Ogawa, and she was kept in check by patient confidentiality. "Should I call you Toko then?" Hawks shot back, and Toby gagged. "Absolutely not." Hawks laughed and reached out, brushing their fingers together for just a second, then stood, holding out the same hand to help Toby up. "Let's go back. We can get your bracelet and finish the cat puzzle." "I will finish the cat puzzle," Toby corrected, unimpressed as he stood. "You will put 2 pieces in and try another victory dance that finally makes me snap and kill you." "You're welcome to try," Hawks challenged. "But I'm afraid it'll never work. I'm just too cool and loved by God." "You've gotten 4 songs banned from karaoke night already. God might love you, but he abandoned us a long time ago. Now you answer to your own sins, pretty boy." He was so snide, so playful, so biting. Hawks was so fucked. Chapter 3. Oh my god. Toby looked like the cat who got the cream, which was worrying from anyone, but especially from him. Hawks raised an eyebrow. "What now?" "Guess who? Heroes Edition." Toby thunked down a game box onto the table and pushed it towards Hawks. "We need to play." Hawks eyed it, suspicious. "How do you play?" "Here." Toby opened the box, quickly taking out 2 yellow plastic racks and setting them up so all the little windows were open. Beneath the plastic covers, the squares were filled with headshots of various top heroes over the past few decades. There were a few different sheets included for variety, and he quickly flipped aside the one bearing his face, hoping Toby wouldn't see it. "We both pick a guy, but don't tell the other. You ask me questions about him, and I answer yes or no. Then you flick down the lids over people to rule them out, until you've only got one left." Toby leaned back on his hands, assessing Hawks. "Make sense?" "Sure." Hawks leaned forwards, in opposition. "So we choose someone random." "That's the idea." Toby nodded. "Let's play." Hawks chose Present Mike. He'd loved the guy during their brief meetings working together, and it was still far enough away, it didn't spark any unwanted memories. Toby chose his own, then hummed in satisfaction. "Got it. Let's go." Hawks started. "Is your person in the top 10? Toby laughed. "Nope. You?" No, at least not since the latest billboards. He hadn't looked at the news recently. Are they alive? I think so. You? Pretty sure. Toby shrugged. Hawks laughed. I think that we should probably know that much. Man, sometimes the bodies just pile up too fast these days. Toby sighed, and it was a fucking gruesome thing to say, and just raw and truthful enough that it didn't hurt so much. You're a brutal bastard, you know? If they knew you had ever stepped foot in the church downstairs, they'd have to call in a priest just to scour out all the demonic influence. I'm the crazy asshole to your lunatic bastard. Folie à deux, c'est la vie, and all that. Toby smirked, and Hawks pretended he knew a lick of French since he was seriously lost here. Toby continued. Is your hero teacher at UA? Hawks sighed. Yeah. A few more panels flicked down. Is yours? Toby looked annoyed at setting himself up like that. Yeah. Hawks raised an eyebrow. What happens if we pick the same one? Time itself collapses. The cosmos begins anew. I flip the board. Hawks stared through his good eye. Don't flip the board. I'm so fucking tempted you don't even know. Hawks shook his head, blonde hair swinging. He'd have to cut it soon. It was starting to reach his chin. Or maybe he wouldn't. Toby made long hair look hot as fuck. Hawks wanted to look like that. Or maybe he just wanted to look at Toby. He didn't linger on it too long. Does yours teach the hero course? Hawks wasn't actually sure about this one, so he shrugged. Not sure. I don't think so. Does yours? Toby flushed. Yes. Hawks paused. Then a slow grin crept over his lips. Did you pick Eraserhead? Toby scowled. Oh, fuck you. Ha! Hawks pointed, grinning maniacally. I'm right, aren't I? Oh my god, I win! Who did you pick? Toby bit. Present Mike. Hawks said, still lost in the lazy glow of glory. Toby flipped the board. And that same week, the bridge collapsed. And you know what was floating in the water? Christmas presents from a collapsed shipping truck. Explain that, Riddler. Toby leaned back, legs crossed on the table, a satisfied look in his eyes. That makes a lot of sense, Hawks replied, eyes widening slightly. I know. My current theory? A time travel quirk held by a bird or bug mutant. That's how they got to the 60s. And think about it. I mean, have you seen that emo kid from UA? He could totally look like a moth in the dark. So, you're saying, Hawk started slowly, that Tokuyami Fumikage is Mothman? Exactly, Toby replied, leaning in with an intense gaze. You're insane, said Hawks. I know, Toby grinned. It's part of my charm. Hawks couldn't deny that. So you actually stole the red string that Haruka was using to make bracelets just for this? He gestured at the string board. Toby had converted one of the closets in the abandoned wing into a Little Mermaid-style treasure trove. But instead of things he'd taken from land, it was things he'd stolen for reasons, apparently. Yeah, Hawks should be having all sorts of heroic thoughts about how stealing is bad and morals and blah blah blah. But one thing he'd learned from Toby is the difference between bad things and bad people. Toby was almost constantly in trouble, and Hawks would die insisting that he was good. The best find so far was an acoustic guitar. Toby was teaching himself how to play, fingers scabbed and calloused from pressing on the strings. Hawks had nearly tried it himself, then realized that the focus on his fingers might mean Toby noticed his talent started to grow out, and he absolutely didn't need that. He tried asking Ogawa to clip them back, but she'd spotted something about how keeping them too short was bad for mutations like his, and he might damage the nerve endings or cut part of his finger itself. Hawks knew that his talents bled a bit more than he thought nail trimmings usually involved, but he hadn't considered it actually hurting him. That was besides the point, though. Yep. Toby nodded proudly, and it was fucking worth it. Tapping his foot, he picked up the guitar, strumming a quick series of chords. Hawks listened and recognized it after a second. The third eye by the pillows? Yeah. Toby's eyes lit up. God, that blue. That perfect blue. Hawks was drowning. He had already drowned. You a fan? Not really. Hawks admitted. Old friend of mine used to really hate the song, so I ended up teaching myself the lyrics so I could annoy him with it. Old friend was an odd way to describe your childhood idol, turned gay awakening, turned weird boss, turned publicly known child abuser. But it worked. Toby barked a laugh. You're a horrible bastard. You know that? I loved it growing up. It also annoyed literally my entire family, which... major bonus. Takes one to know one then, Hulk said, and Toby shoved him playfully in the shoulder, and oh fuck. There were those butterflies again, letting him know he would never be free of this moment as long as he fucking lived. Chapter 4. About a week later, they lay on the church floor together, watching the light stream through the painted glass. Toby had his hands behind his head, and Hawks had crossed his legs as their heads nearly touched. Are you scared of me? The question drifted out of nowhere, but it didn't really surprise Hawks. He was used to Toby's odd disregard for most social conventions. Hawks considered it for a long moment, then slowly shook his head. No, I don't think I'm scared of you. Then you might be one of the first. Toby grinned, sighing. I am. Scared of me, I mean. I'm scared of myself constantly. Why? Hawks chirped, surprised. His eyes widened. I mean, why wouldn't you be afraid of the person who tried to kill you? Hawks considered that for a long moment. I've had a lot of people try to kill me, and I don't think I'm scared of them. Except for All for One. That moment was burned into his mind forever. You know, Toby sat up on his elbows, yawning like a lanky cat, slender hands with scuffed nails. I can't tell if you're brave or just stupid. Is that a compliment? Hawks asked, amused. The ultimate compliment, Toby insisted. Usually, I don't have to even wonder. He let out a breath, gaze turning more contemplative. I mean, of course, there's a whole argument about how bravery doesn't exist in a vacuum. Can't have bravery without fear. But I think that's bullshit. It misunderstands what fear is. Like, you can be scared of something without being afraid of it. I might feel scared if I nearly fall off a building, but I'm not afraid of heights. If I was scared of falling every other second, but the one I fell, I'd be afraid. I don't know how to divide it, but there's continual fear, and there's circumstantial fear. And I think both of them are bullshit. Actually, I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Sorry. Toby huffed out a laugh, and Hawks shook his head. I like listening to you talk. It was honest, and Hawks looked over to see if Toby felt it. His breath caught. Light stained by the painted window panes streamed over him, turning the angles of his face into a mosaic, softening him and dyeing his hair into pastels. Blue eyes shining and gentle smile lopsided. Hawks realized that if Toby asked him to kill, he'd do it without thinking. He realized all at once that he was pretty sure he was going to die for him. There's a movie night later tonight, said Toby, changing the subject. You want to go? Sure. What film? Some old horror flick. Yokai inspired, I think. Toby gave easily, sitting up and pulling a chocolate bar from his pocket. Unwrapping the foil, he snapped it in half and handed part of it over. Where'd you get this from? Hawks asked, amused, and guessing the answer already. Vending machines. But you know that. Toby flicked Hawks on the shoulder. I did know that. But now I have confirmation. I can legally make fun of you, Hawks said, smug. Bold words for the one who keeps taking half of my snacks. Toby threatened, and Hawks laughed. licking chocolate from his fingers. Toby's gaze flicked down to his tongue, and Hawks could almost swear his eyes lingered there, before he quickly turned away and made another half-baked comment. And Hawks wanted to kiss him. Oh fuck, Hawks wanted to kiss Toby. He could do it. He could lean over and press his lips against Toby's, gently link their fingers together, run a hand through Toby's long white hair, and Toby might lean into him and turn his world into a haze of banana bubblegum and scented candle smoke and chocolate aftertaste. No. Hawks wanted to crawl into himself and never emerge again. Toby sometimes flirted with him. Sometimes he said things that made Hawks' heart thud and skitter and flicker. But that didn't mean it meant something. Because Toby was just like that. He was a bastard with a flirty edge, who probably saw through every attempt Hawks made to hide his crush. But that was different than saying it out loud, and putting it up to be acknowledged and talked about. Then Toby could decide that Hawks wasn't worth it, and everything would be awkward, and then Hawks would be alone. He couldn't tell what it was that drew him in, even whether it was genuine attraction or just an effect of the trauma and the fear they shared pulling them close together. He tried talking to Janu and Haruka and Tanaka, lovely people who were honest about their lives in the past, who talked about their life before the hospital as if it was the same as their current one, who patiently smiled at Hawks like he owed them an identity. Toby had a past life out of necessity. He became a person when the situation called for it, when memories and association were useful. Other than that, he was a ghost of time. Thin sheets of white hair and pale skin. No baggage to attend to, just a coy smile as he strode in to perch on Hawks' heart. What if kissing him turned the glass slippers back into hospital scrubs? What if it broke the spell and left them stranded? But even worse, what if he didn't kiss Toby and ended up with regret? Hawks was done with regret.